right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're excited to be speaking with our community of women, executive women. This is a webinar focused on taking charge of your personal finances, and it is co-sponsored between WBC and Aspiriant. I am one of the co-founders of WBC, a longtime board member, as is our guest, Jerry. As you probably all know, WBC is an organization gathered together to accelerate results for women. So we work on collaboration and we work on speeding results. And Aspiriant, I'm the Chief Practice Officer of Aspiriant. We are a wealth management firm that specializes in wealth management and investment management. And we serve a wide range of levels of wealth. We serve a wide range of types of clients. We've got about 15 billion under management. And we are here to talk about specifically women, because we also have an initiative in our company for many years, Women Taking Charge. So we focus on the special needs and unique needs of women, and that's what we're here to talk about today. So, all right, this is a three-part webinar. Today, we're going to start talking about the foundation, the grounding beginnings of how you think about your wealth, your relationship to wealth, and how you begin to form your plan. You don't just make a plan out of air. It's based on your values, your goals, your objectives, what you want to achieve. So that's what we're here to talk about today. So before we do introductions, we thought we would lay the groundwork for the conversation and do a brief poll. So the poll is going to be asking us, how comfortable are you talking about your personal financial situation with others? If you're extremely, if you're comfortable, uncomfortable, whatever we'll give that a second. It's trending up and down, up and down. Nice. We seem to be about 50% comfortable and 50% uncomfortable. So that's interesting. Okay. I think we can end the poll, and why don't we get started with introductions? That's good to know. And yeah, so I want to start with introductions here. Let me see, do we share results? Okay, let me turn that off there. Very good. All right, so we have three wonderful panelists today. Sandy, why don't you introduce yourself first, and then we'll do Lena, and then our guest, Jerry.
Sounds good. Thanks, Lynn. Hello, everybody. It's great to be here. I'm Sandy Brager. I'm Chief Client Officer at Aspiriant, and I'm one of those people who is practicing her dream profession. I learned about the world of financial planning when I was in college, and I knew at that moment that I wanted to spend my career life helping individuals and families make really good choices about their personal finances. And one of my favorite aspects of the work that I get to do is talking with our clients all the time here at Aspiriant about money. So for those of you who are looking to boost your comfort level, we hope that we'll be able to do that together in the next 45 minutes. And it's a pleasure and delight to be here. Thanks, Lynn.
Great. Lena, why don't you introduce yourself and share a little bit about why you care so much about this topic? I got up this morning and told my husband we were doing this webinar, and he said, "Oh, you're talking to your people." So yeah, it's our community here and something we care deeply about. So Lena, why don't you introduce yourself?
Absolutely, Lynn. Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here. It's so great to see everyone join this morning. I am a wealth advisor here at Aspiriant. I work with, women, families, clients in helping manage their financial affairs. Part of why I am incredibly passionate about what we do and, the topic today is because I've had the opportunity to work with so many successful women and families throughout my career. And everyone is an absolute master at their own craft, right? But life tends to happen, and oftentimes our personal finances get put on the back end. And part of that is because finances can either be daunting or emotional, or just simply because we don't have the time. Ultimately creating wealth is not just about accumulating assets, but it's what it enables you to do, the peace of mind that it brings, and then the legacy that you could create for others. So today's topic, in terms of taking charge of your finances, essentially sheds light on the importance of taking a stance early on in order to do that. So that's why I'm so passionate about speaking tonight to everyone.
Nice, thank you. And Jerry, my friend and fellow board member of WBC, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Lynn. I am thrilled to be here today. As Lynn mentioned, we've come to know each other as part of the WBC board. And I love Lynn now. She learned so much from her in the short time we've got to know each other. But after an extensive career in both federal government and corporate, I recently rewired into the P3 team, focusing on purpose, people, and processes. And so this goes hand in hand with the work both Aspirant does and WBC, and really recognizing that the highlight of my career, that my passion, as Sandy described hers, is really the reaching back and giving back, especially to younger women in their career. So I find this very timely, and I'm looking forward to today's discussion.
Great. Jerry has kindly agreed to open up her world a little bit. So we'll be working through an exercise that we do at Aspirant. So let's do one more poll to get us oriented. This poll is about who do you talk to most about money? And we'll get oriented on that, and that will help us kind of direct our comments today. There's a little bit more on my screen. The bottom of the poll also says no one. My lips are sealed, so that's part of the poll here. A lot of folks feel quite uncomfortable talking about their financial situation. Interesting. 25%. I talk with myself. About 45% spouse and partner. Huh. Okay. 30% talk with myself. All right. A very kind of private topic. Interesting. All right, great. Why don't we, I'm going to end the poll. Okay, great. So let's dive in. Sandy, let's start with you. Can you describe some of the key ways we work with clients, how we do those initial steps to surface values and, surface the foundation upon which we have these conversations?
Sure, Lynn, and I'm excited that we're going to be modeling that today with Jerry's help in just a little bit. But one of the first things we start off with when we're meeting with clients is really understanding who they are, what's most important to them, and what drives them. So there is a lot of values discovery there and purpose discovery. And a lot of that comes through storytelling. And one of the important things that we cover with clients early on is how there are two sides of money. And these two sides of money work congruent with one another. There is the technical side of money. Think budgets, tax law, estate planning, different types of retirement accounts, the present value idea around money in dollar cost averaging. All these words and concepts are very technical. So that's one side, and that side can be daunting for some people. The other side of money is the emotional side of money. The emotional side of money is how we feel about money. It's how money makes us feel. And the emotional side of money is really important to be aware of too, because oftentimes when we're making decisions on the technical side, it's the emotional side that's driving us. And for many of us, the emotional side of money that we've formed is based on the messages and the modeling that we observed when we were younger, usually from the adults who raised us, might have been our parents or other people. We're also informed on the emotional side by our own life experience. Think of a time when maybe you had a lot of money in your pockets, dollar bills, and you lost them. Like that can be jarring for people and can stick with you. Or think about a time when maybe you made the best investment of your life and you felt like, I have this nailed. I know exactly what I'm doing. Those are examples of the sorts of things that we experience that can form us. And then sometimes these personal experiences are based on what's happening in the outside world. So anyone who's lived through the financial crisis has a feeling likely of what it was like to lose a lot of money if you were invested in the market at that time. The other influence on how we feel about money and how money makes us feel is the societal messages that we get. There's all sorts of nuanced and sometimes very clear messages in society about what we should be doing with money, how we should be spending it, how we should be investing it, how we should be giving it away. And that can create a lot of internal emotion for us. So if it's okay, I'd like to do a little bit of an experiment, a little exercise just to get people in touch with your own technical and emotional side of money. And then I'm going to hope that Lena will provide some examples of where we see this coming into play with our clients. So for this exercise, I'd like you to grab a piece of paper or your phone, something where you can jot down some numbers. We're going to do a little bit of math. And I'm going to ask each of you to please calculate your net worth. And so if you're not familiar with this concept, let's break it down. First, we're going to ask you to estimate the value of all of your assets. Assets are simply the things that you own. So it might be bank accounts, brokerage accounts, retirement accounts. It could be a home if you own a home, art, jewelry, cars, whatever your assets are. Take a moment, estimate the value, and you don't have to get granular here. You can do that later on if you want to, but just put an estimated number together of all of your assets and write that down or type it into your phone or computer. And I want you to think about and acknowledge what it's like to look at that number, right? That's half of the inputs into calculating our net worth. The second piece of calculating our net worth is to estimate the value of all of our liabilities. And when assets are things that we own, liabilities are things that we owe. So think about credit card balances, student loans that you might have outstanding, a mortgage, personal debt to family members or banks, whatever the case is. Now estimate your liabilities and put a negative number in front of that because liabilities, you owe them, and put that underneath the value of your total assets. And now to calculate your net worth, I just want you to subtract those liabilities from the assets. And what's left over is your net worth. In some cases, it could be a large number, it could be a negative number. But take that in, check in, how are you feeling about that number? And then on the count of three, and not before I count to three, because I want to make sure we all do this, but on the count of three, I'd like you to please type into the chat your net worth. Ready? Now, I'm not going to ask you to type in your net worth into the chat, but I'm curious and would invite you to type into the chat your reaction to what I just said, the reaction of asking to share your net worth, because that's usually a good barometer of your emotional side of money. Were you excited to do that? Were you hesitant? Were you going to feel judged? Whatever the case may be, that's the emotional side.
We're getting a lot of chats around, whoa, thank God, no. And when we talked about this,
it's funny that we feel that way.
When we talked about this before the panel, that was exactly my reaction. Oh no, I also wanted to go back for a second. I loved your list of our relationship to money. And Sandy and Cami, who's on the call, do a podcast called Money Tales, and it's about our relationship to money. And I flashed when you were describing sort of how we grew up. For me, I still remember, and the bank is still there, Chase Manhattan Bank at the corner of Sheridan Square in Manhattan. And my father went when I was 21 years old, and it was the first time I ever learned how to write a check. At 21 years old. So my parents were lovely, wonderful, great, but zero financial acumen, self-care, understanding. So how do I feel when I think about my money? Even I, as CPO, a little bit of because really that's still in me. That's just still in me.
It's amazing how those early experiences can really stick with us and in raising awareness to how you're feeling about money and especially when you're making big decisions can shed a lot of light on what's going on for you. And it's really important to the work that we do to understand where clients are coming from emotionally. And Lena, do you have some examples that you'd share from the work that we do with
Yeah,
clients?
absolutely. Yeah. You know, I would like to share two client stories to essentially reflect you know, the technical side and the emotional side. I think, you know, that's a great way to really portray both of these angles. So for the technical side, this one specific client that I have in mind that I've been working with for a couple of years already. She's a very successful woman, like, you know, all of you here. She's always been diligent in terms of her finances, very meticulous in terms of tracking expenses, saving, you know, being disciplined in terms of contributing to her retirement plans. You know, through planning, we evaluate the technical component of her needs. Her goal is to essentially sustain her lifestyle, which, you know, equates around $200,000 per year, all the way through retirement. So we address, you know, these technical aspects such as, you know, the savings targets that she should aim for on an annual basis, evaluating the risk return components of her portfolio. You know, oftentimes we may think we need to take, you know, additional risks, but, you know, once you determine in terms of your financial plan, that shows that may not be the case. So, you know, this was part of the planning process with her and, you know, why both investing and planning go hand in hand. And of course, as circumstances change, right? You adjust, you make changes, you evaluate, you reassess, you know, you change direction. So that's more the technical side. As it relates to the emotional side of money, I work with a client couple, very sweet, elderly. You know, they built such a successful business and they were, you know, they were able to sell this business, and that's essentially how they accumulated their wealth. You know, they came from a very modest upbringing, both husband and wife. You know, they were big savers, you know, raised 5 kids, but they always struggled to really feel their wealth. They still had that mentality, even though, you know, they had a very large portfolio, still struggle to really, you know, adjust their lifestyle to their level of assets. So, you know, specifics instance, I remember they called me up, they were looking for a vehicle. You know, and they were weighing out whether to purchase it because of this specific feature that they really wanted, but it was an additional like $15,000-$20,000, and they're like, oh, you know, should we buy this? And it's like, you can more than afford that. So, you know, the emotional side, again, like you were saying, Sandy, you know, those experiences from early on, you know, is essentially what shapes us throughout our lives and, you know, just how we make decisions overall.
All right, great. Let us do a one word. Put one word in the chat that describes your emotional relationship to money. One word. Let's see what folks share. Complicated, complex, cautious, ever-changing, stress, fraught, progress, security. Security, that's one of my values. Stability. Thrifty. Anxiety, that's what we were talking about earlier. We kind of, a lot of us carry this anxiety with us that isn't actually grounded in reality or grounded in our real situation. All right, let's keep going. We're going to move into a slices of life exercise with Sandy and Jerry. So why don't we take it away, Sandy?
Thanks, Lynn. I'm just still looking at all the words coming up on the screen, and it is interesting to see the range. And isn't it wonderful to be in this community together of this webinar to be able to share and normalize these feelings? So yes, let's turn to a tool. This is a tool, it's a common coaching tool. We've modified it to help support the work that we do at Aspiriant. So we put a personal financial lens on it. We call it Slices of Life. And I'm going to share my screen. I believe that you have access to this through the webinar console, and if not, WBC will make sure that you get a copy of it so that you can do this exercise at home if you like, or wherever you want. The Slices of Life survey is a priming tool. So I always think about it here in Northern California, where the Pacific Ocean is beautiful, but it's freezing. Regardless of whether you go there on a cold day or the hottest day of the year, the water is so cold. One strategy, if you want to go swimming, is to just jump right in, dive into a wave, have that shock of cold water surrounding you and start moving your body. The method I prefer is to wade in, go in with my feet and then keep going deeper. And that's what this satisfaction survey does. It allows us to kind of gradually open up the doors and have some really deep and meaningful money conversations with clients. And Jerry's going to demonstrate a conversation around this Slices of Life in a moment, but I just want to tee it up for you so that you understand what I'm sharing on my screen. And I'm just confirming you can see the screen.
Yes, we can see it. Thank you, Sandy.
Awesome. So what we've done here is we've taken different aspects of our lives and we've basically taken the circle and sliced it up into these areas. And we ask clients to tell us their satisfaction level on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 is in the middle of the circle, 10 is on the outer end. We ask them to tell us their satisfaction level in each of these areas. And then we ask them to connect the dots. The great thing about this exercise is it takes hardly any time to do. This is like 5 minutes or less. You don't have to spend hours on it. And there's no wrong answers, right? We're looking at where you are in a particular moment. I want to highlight that we are asking folks to tell us what their satisfaction level is, not their happiness level, because satisfaction, while it does change over time, it's not, it doesn't change as often as happiness, which is a fleeting emotion oftentimes. So as we move into the next page that I'll share, which is the results of Jerry's Slices of Life, I want to invite Jerry into the conversation around this and ask you, Jerry, for your permission. Once again, we kind of teed this up before, but I'd like your permission to have this conversation with you today.
Absolutely, Sandy. It was a little daunting initially when Lynn teed it up, but once I met you and Lena, my comfort level rose.
Oh,
so let's do it.
Well, thank you, Jerry. And in the conversation that we have, I invite you to be as vulnerable as you're willing to be with over 75 of our now best friends and those that watch the recording later. And just like the best game shows, if I ask you a question that you're not comfortable answering, just say pass and we'll move on.
Great.
Okay. So as we move into your results, Jerry, you just spend a moment, and I know it's been a couple of weeks since you've taken the survey, but what was your reaction? What was your experience having taken this survey?
Yeah, so because of the nature of my work, I'm accustomed to these types of surveys. As you said, it's a common coaching. But it was an aha moment to see it with respect to financials. And while I have very strong financial advisors that I have full confidence in, I did not have this type of tool early on. And I think it would have been a much better conversation starter. And so, you talk about, are they aware of your priorities, the things that are important to you? This is a great tool because I feel like oftentimes women especially aren't even honest with themselves. When they respond to the advisors, to other people, they give the answer that they think they should be given, as opposed to how do you really feel? And that emotional stuff that you mentioned kicks in. So that was an aha for me.
Yeah, and that's a great aha to share because I can relate to that. There are times when I feel like I should know the answer and I just kind of nod my head or maybe I cover up how I really feel. And I think when it comes to personal finances, if it's difficult for you to be honest with yourself and with the advisors that you work with or the friends you're talking to or your spouse or partner, I encourage you to work through that awkwardness. as I like to say, there's that saying, all the magic happens when you get outside of your comfort zone.
Mm.
Yeah.
So thanks for bringing that up, Jerry.
Mhm.
I'm going to now switch to your results. And I just want everyone to know that while Jerry shared her results with us in advance, this is a completely unscripted conversation. We haven't had any discussion with each other about it. So let's move on to the slide here. So these are Jerry's results, and you can see she has pretty high satisfaction levels in most of these areas. And Jerry, let's start in the areas where you have the most satisfaction.
Mhm.
And let's start with friends. What's driving you to a 10 in the friends area?
Yeah, so I have been very intentional with respect to my friendships, close friends in particular, staying connected, traveling together, all of that. And they go hand in hand with the fun and recreation. If you see them at the opposite sides of the circle, if you will, but they're very much connected. And so I've been very intentional, especially I'd say maybe within the last 5 to 8 years. And maybe that's aging, but how meaningful, the meaningful relationships. I know a lot of people, but I don't necessarily count them as friends. And so for me, it is very much pouring in to those relationships that I see as friends. And that in turn connects with the fun and recreation. I do things together with my friends. I work out with my friends. I go to concerts with my friends. I travel with my friends. I even collaborate in business with my friends. So all of those things are very important to me. And again, I've been very intentional in the last several years.
That's great, Jerry. So thank you for bringing those to life with us. Friendship is really important to you, having fun, incorporating your close friends into the things that you're doing derives a lot of joy and pleasure for you, it sounds like.
Yes, yes, yes.
Tell us about spirituality. That's a little bit lower relative to everything else. What's driving that?
I think as I reflected, now I didn't think it would be lower just before this exercise, but as I reflected, I think I was focused on where do I think I should be? Where do I aspire? I look at some of my sister friends in particular, and I see one of them, Michelle Robinson, is on here. She is someone that I see as very spiritual. And, oftentimes when I'm having a bad day, she says, "Can I just pray for you?" And it's that sort of thing that I have these key friends that I sincerely call my prayer warriors. And they're in different places. They're not here in Washington, D.C., where I'm based, but I know that they're there always. And I want to be more like them. I think that's where I landed on this. So not so much the formal religion where, yes, I give to the church and those sort of things, but being more like these particular women that come to mind that I find highly spiritual. And I need to work on that, be
So that's
better.
something that's important to you. You just haven't been pouring as much time and effort
Yes.
into it recently,
Yes.
but you're inspired by those friends in your life that
Mhm.
are strong in that area and are good models to you.
Right.
Sounds like.
Right. And it's funny, we're talking about this in the context of money, because as I said, I give, I fill up, do the little check to the church on a regular basis, but that doesn't feel especially spiritual to me.
And can you say more about what prompts you to give and how you make those decisions?
A little bit of that is habit and how you're raised, and my mother. My mother is deceased, but she was very active. I was raised Catholic. She was very active in the church. This was a priority for her. So I think in turn, it's remained a priority for me, although I don't think I am as committed to the formal religion as she was. Is that
But-
making sense?
It does. It sounds like there's a nice legacy piece in there, carrying on
Yes.
some of the
Yes.
tradition that your mother modeled for you.
Yes,
It's
very much
beautiful.
so. Mhm.
Tell us about homes and family. They're at the same ranking as well as personal finances.
Yeah, so the on the home front, I'm fine. I own my home that I live in. That so I don't not 100% sure why I didn't rate it as high. I think because I'm thinking in terms of longer term, where I want to be as I age, and I'm rethinking that. I'm in a state of flux. So that's where I'm rethinking. There was a point in time where I thought I would want to be in a different place. And, it's just rethinking. So that's the uncertainty I believe is reflected there. And then, I have a large family. I'm very supportive, not my immediate family. I have one son who's grown. And that was a lot of my priority. And we can come back to that in terms of supporting him, pouring into him, it being very important to me that when he finished college, that he was debt free, that sort of thing. And yet I have a large family, and I think about how do I continue to support them in a wider, and I think about all my nieces and nephews, and we have a very large family. So I think in that respect, that's perhaps where there's some uncertainty in how do I better, build that generational wealth that we're very much focused on now. My family too came from humble beginnings, so there wasn't a lot availed to me, but I'm building that and have become a bit of an angel investor for my adult nieces, nephews, and my son.
And Jerry, would you share more about what that looks like?
Yeah, so my son recently launched a venture here in Washington, D.C. with his friends, and I invested in that because I believe in their dream, what they're doing, and they all have their day jobs, but this was a venture that it's doing very well. And I believed in, I mean, they were all had their business goals laid out firmly, and I could see and connect with their vision. And so I invested. And I am fully confident I'll get the return on that investment. Another was my nephew has a venture. Again, he's going into the arts and film, and so those things I want to support because I want them to continue and to invest. But I don't have all the money in the world. But what's the smartest move to be supportive and think in terms of those generations to come?
So it sounds like really building a strategy toward multi-generational wealth is important to you. And rather than giving money away, you're making
Yes.
an investment in the rising generation members of your family.
Yes.
And allowing them.
I've had that conversation, Sandy, with my son. When he was younger, it was, okay, if anything happens to me, here's all, this was early on. Here's all the information. This is what you need to do. If I drop dead in the street, call your godmother, do this, do this, do this. Here's all the access. But then, as I said, he's now owns a home in Washington, D.C., which was no small feat. It was very expensive here, but he owns his own home. He came out of college debt free. That's the start. So he needs to now build. It's not my goal to leave him a lot of money when I pass, because I want to invest in him now so that he can build for the future.
Sandy, in the interest of time, could you now talk a little bit about how this wonderful conversation with Jerry would evolve into goals? How would that land in Jerry's financial plan?
Yeah.
We've just got about maybe 10 minutes left, so I'm going to reorder the way we structured this. But I think
time flies when you're having fun. Well, I want to thank Jerry for engaging in the conversation with us. You shared a lot of really interesting things and really demonstrated well how the Slices of Life survey opens up all these important conversations about values, about priorities, about money. So thank you for that. When we are sort of through this exercise with clients, the next natural step for us is to focus the clients on what their goals are, what their financial goals are. And when I grew up in the profession, the way that I was taught to write a goal is a time-bound dollar-denominated expenditure, right? So I want to retire when I'm 60 years old and spend $100,000 for the rest of my life, and I'm going to live till 95. That was a goal. When you state your goals like that, it's really easy to plan. Like we could run models all day and get you the answer that you need. But as a person, it's really hard to relate to that goal. There's no heart and soul in there. There's no emotion around it. So in addition to picking out the quantitative aspects of goals with clients, we really focus on pairing those quantitative aspects with the qualitative, with what's most important to the client. So Jerry, I'm just going to guess from some of what you've shared already, you have goals around how much money you want to spend in order to, on your lifestyle, in order to enjoy time with your friends and do the things that you want to do that are most important to you with the people that are most important to you. So you might have a goal around that. It sounds like you have goals around on building a legacy and a financial legacy with your family. So we take this exercise and we mirror it with trying to pick out with clients what's most important to them. And I do encourage participants on this call to take some time later today, later in the week, and in the weeks ahead to really call out your goals and to write them down. Just like with the net worth exercise we did before, when you have things staring at you in your face, you can relate to them a lot differently than if they're just in your mind.
Yes, Sandy, I want to double down on that it is seeing it in this instance in color versus black or white is very powerful, very powerful.
And Jerry, anything else now that you've gone through this exercise that has shifted for you?
Yeah, well, the recognition that there are phases in your life where things shift. And so there were, my priorities, my goals were different. When my son was 14 years old, right? Versus as when he graduated from college, I'm like, handle your business, sir. And being able to think about the other things that I'm committed to, what I do in my community, where I spend, with whom I collaborate, all of those things. There are fluctuations over time. And that's why I think this is a really important conversation and exercise for women early in their career, never too late, but earlier in their career, so they can start planning accordingly.
Nice.
And the nice thing about this exercise is you can do it all the time. We do it at the outset of relationships with clients, and oftentimes we'll bring it back once a year. And certain clients like to see the trends and they like to see how it changes. So we keep copies in our files so that we can show them over time. To your point, Jerry.
Mm-hmm.
So we've just got about 5 minutes. I want to cut to a question we had. Since both of you work with women, the kinds of trends that we see in working with women, we just heard a lot of them. And I wanted to start with a trend that we talked about in our prep session that we have found with women of color. There is a trend around supporting one's own community, giving back the legacy of the generation, investing into the generation. So, these are very important aspects of our client relationships that we help them focus on those trends, those moments. Lena, in like 1 minute, could you share one trend that you've noticed with women clients you've worked with that you think is specific to women?
Yeah, absolutely. So, with women becoming more prominent wealth holders, societal and financial structures are evolving. We're certainly seeing this in investment trends around purpose. Women are asking and expressing greater interest in terms of impact investing to align that to their personal values. ESG, which essentially stands for environmental, social, and governance. Women are wanting to have these types of investments as part of their strategy. And just briefly, in terms of what these three things address, on the environmental side, it's addressing things such as like climate change, environmental protection, renewable energy. On the social side, what is the company's attitude towards society, such as equity, inclusion, community development, and then governance, right? What is a company's social responsibility, in terms of how they include diversity in their management, what are their business ethics? So just to highlight some of that. So we're certainly seeing that as it relates to aligning the investment strategy for women, more in accordance to their values and what's important to them.
Nice. And Sandy, what's one trend in a minute?
I think women are such great natural collaborators with each other, and in the personal financial space, we're seeing more and more collaboration. On the investment front, as Lena was just talking about, also in the front of learning from and developing each other, mentoring each other in terms of personal finances, and certainly on the side of sharing referrals. We always share referrals to doctors or hairstylists or whatever the case may be. Now we're seeing more and more women referring financial advisors, estate planning attorneys, and other advisors to each other, which is really great to see.
Nice. So in our last minute, one final chat. So in our client meetings, we always end with time for reflection. So folks would like to put something in the chat of what's one takeaway, what's one thing you learned, what's one thing that shifted for you. And while you're doing that, I'll just remind folks, we've got 2 more of these webinars. The next one's going to be very, very specific. We're going to run plans, show you what it looks like, show you how you run out age and goals and how you map this into the actual plan. And the third one is kind of maintenance and how you pivot as things happen in your life. So on that note, I just want to thank everybody. And we're getting my circle is not round. Nice. And thanks for Jerry for sharing. That's exactly right. So thank you all so much, and hopefully you'll join us next time, and we will see you then.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Jerry.
Yes, thank you all.